Up, you got a second.
Oh, that's how our communities blow.
Yo, sub, you got a second.
Okay, we are live on the Brothaship, and this is May 2022, and I have the privilege and this distinct honor to give you a few things before we actually get into the actual show. This is our 1 year anniversary of doing the show, and I'm really excited because this started off as a concept. I was asked from the Sistahship, would I be interested in getting involved in having some dialogue with a bunch of everyday men from different walks of life and discussing pertinent topics. And it morphed into, a situation where we had a bunch of folks, but through consistency and time, we've been able to sharpen the saw. We've been able to have pertinent content, but most importantly, we've been able to reach people on a variety of subject matters. So I'm really happy about that. The second thing, I wanted to give a plug to a very good friend of mine and fellow FAMU classmate, Alex Jones. This is his trademark, Black, Wealthy, and Wise, and he is in the space of financial literacy and insurance. And if you have needs like that, look him up on Facebook, Alex Jones, and you will see his products and some of the services that he offers. Now, to get to us, the Brothaship. This month, I decided to double down. Last month, we had a very informative show. We had the distinguished guest, Vincent Wrice, on, and he's back. And I brought my brother, Rook Johnson from Rook's Castle, back as well. So we have the host this time. It's just going to be Bay Bullock, who's there, and myself, Darren DJ Jersey, that are going to be on today. So we got an interesting show. May is that time of year where there's a bunch of different things going on. Mother's Day, mid-year election. So I wanted to start the show off kind of on a sentimental journey, but more, I'll say, importantly, about moms. And I wanted to go around the room and talk about the role of mothers. I want to first wish the mothers that are joining or that will see the show a happy Mother's Day in advance. But I wanted to go around the room and talk about the role of mothers, how they've shaped you, because in this space, we've got a bunch of successful people. And I just wanted to understand from your perspective how much of a role moms played in guiding you, encouraging you, and most importantly, giving you the value. So we'll go around the room. Vince, can you share your perspective?
Yeah, I'm a youngest child, man. So my mother is real heavy in my life, and she was my primary teacher and primary caregiver. But a lot of who I am is her. I'm more her than I am my father. You know what I mean? I'm more like her than I am like my father. No, nothing against my dad. He's that dude too. But it can't be done without mom. I'm here to tell you, when she carried me, she carried me into adulthood and beyond. She was, and her basic goal was to make me independent, to make me so that at the end I didn't need her, but at the end she needed me. And that's but it's she taught me a lot about life, and a lot about the things that I do, and a lot of who I am, my successes and all, I owe to her. It's larger than just saying my mom was nice to me, she raised me, she did this, she did that. She's not with me anymore, and it's a great loss. Because I find myself having to talk to her, and she ain't here to talk to. She's not here to give me that advice. She's not here to ask any of that kind of stuff. But she did prepare me for where I am now, even though she's no longer here. She prepared me for this. She prepared me for when she was no longer here. It's just that simple. I mean, I can go on and on about it, but fathers are necessary too. Without a mom, it's a big difference without a mom. The single fathers that I know struggle with their kids. They struggle in a way that single mothers do not. I can say that. And my mother wasn't a single mom, but she was everything. I remember my mother going to job interviews with her 4 sons. I remember that. So yeah, she was huge, man. She was huge. She never left us out.
So, Bay, what say you?
Okay, gentlemen. Moms. Oh, my mom was a major influence on me. She gave me determination. She gave me a lot of wisdom that she had. Right now, we have a rocky relationship, but I always love my mom because she put me in the position that I'm in now, that I can commiserate with Vince, where he says, my mom did everything. Dads are important. Dads are major important. I'm a dad, so I know how important I am to my kids. But it's something about that motherly love. It's just something about that makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. You know what I'm saying? It just makes you, when your mom, you remember when you were a young kid and you're laying in bed and your mom comes in and she tucks you in the blanket. That was the best feeling in the world. And that was the best feeling in the world. My mom is, my rock. A lot of things I think about when I was younger, she would talk to me and lecture me on certain things. Just made me feel, that they still resonate with me. And I'm 58 years old right now, and they still resonate with me. They still they're in my DNA. My mother was a major influence on me, and I grew up with a stepfather, and I was extremely close to my mom and protective of my mom. I can't even put into words. I really can't put into words how I feel about that relationship that I had with my mother. But I'm figuring as we go through this conversation, thoughts and feelings will come up as we go on.
Perfect, man. And that's what this is about, because again, it's an ode to mothers, but I think on a personal level, just sharing, your thoughts. Now, what's interesting is that the relationship I have with Vince was more, peer to peer based on our experiences in college. But I knew just meeting him that there was that value system. And when I found out that she had transitioned, something I learned when I had a parent transition, the best thing that we can do for a friend is be there. And I had the wherewithal to at least just be there to support him by showing up. And it's just something I picked up. But I digress. I'm going to hand it over to Rook. Now, he and I just happen to have the same sibling, but I'm sure that our perspectives will be similar. So, Rook, what say you?
Well, that's probably one of the most important things in most of our lives, being African American male, having the moms, because the moms provide a role. I listened to something that Vince said, but about how important his dad was also. But there's something about your mom. In our case, we actually share the same mother. But in our case, and mine, I'm going to let you speak for yourself. But my mom was my best friend, confidant, advisor, caretaker, provider. There's just something about your mom. Our dads, we were fortunate enough to live in a two-parent household that, in that era, they both worked. But it's something about your mom that worked, that made sure food was on the table, that cooked, that took you to the doctor, to the dentist when dad had to work a second job and he couldn't be around, and your mom had to go to the PTA meeting or school function. It's just something that you build with your mom. A lot of times now in our society, in the African American community, some of us are reluctant to talk to our dads. A lot of people have situations where they have a stepdad, or maybe they're not their real father in their lives. So it's something about a mom always being there. When you talk about the holidays, our mom's birthday is next in 2 weeks, but Mother Day is usually that week or that same day. So we kind of celebrate twice: Mother's Day, their birthdays, Valentine's Day, Easter, Christmas. Those are some of those most important holidays that you really realize how fortunate that you are. If you do have a mom that's still here, our mom is going to be 84 years old, but Darren and I, we share the same mom, as you guys know, but we're just fortunate. We're still close to our mom, everything we do, everything that has that we've been fortunate enough to achieve, or even things that we didn't achieve, we were able to talk to our mom and look to guidance or advice. And like someone said before to me about a week ago, your mom is never wrong. Sometimes they have to let you learn on your own, but your mom is always gonna be in your corner, even when you are wrong. So I just want to say happy Mother's Day, not only to my mom but all the mothers. And let's also be understand and be real to the fact that in our society now, I don't think they give enough credit to the mothers out here that are struggling for whatever reason. We know how that goes. Who don't have that extra support system that are raising their kids, their grandkids, their great grandkids when everything else falls apart in the family. Everybody has something going on in their family, whether they want to discuss it or not. But at that point, who's the one person that's the most important part of resolving any type of problem or issue? It's your mother. When everybody's got to sit down at the table and tell a family member something they want to hear. When there's a death in the family, when there's something that really, really could break your family apart, that one person that brings you all together is your mom.
No, yeah. I mean, I think, again, what's interesting is that Rook and I mean, that's my older brother. We have a 6-year gap. And I think that that dynamic plays different in a lot of families because mothers, they tend to know their children better than we know ourselves. And I'm just speaking for myself. So I look at mom as, again, that provider, that protector. Dad was the ultimate protector, but mom's actually gave me a lot of push. She just was so organized in how she approached life. When I say that, she gave us the guidance to pretty much make decisions. And that's a good thing because I can never remember, at least in my upbringing, her telling me that I had to do something. And I use that actually as a leadership tool when I was able to lead groups. I call it free fail or free succeed. You give people the autonomy that they deserve to make good decisions. And generally speaking, if they know that you support them, they'll do well. That was a life lesson I learned. So I view moms at this point more like, I'll say, not a friend, but again, a confidant. I think that's it. I can bounce virtually anything to moms. And I think my experience has been I've never tried to take advantage of mom because we all know in a lot of environments that we thrive in or we're in, moms has unconditional love. That ne'er-do-well kid that's always screwing up. Moms is the first one that's going to always have that kid's back. I've always tried to, and with, varying levels of success, tried to A, make her proud of me, but B, also make sure that when I wasn't doing things that were on the right path, I'd receive her instructions of encouragement and unconditional support. I'll be very transparent. One time when I was younger, I screwed up. And I remember my mom being there, obviously, for me, but she wrote me and left in my apartment just on a cue card, a 3x5, some words of wisdom that I never forgot. She said, "You got to get back to basics." Nothing more, nothing less. So if you are lucky, and most of us are, we just sometimes forget those lessons as we think we know everything or we mature. The basics are very simple. It's the difference between right or wrong. It's the difference between making moral choices that don't negatively impact you or the environment that you're in. And that's something that I learned as a byproduct of her, but it was also an example of what I saw her doing in the nuclear family that we were a part of. So, on behalf of her and all mothers, happy Mother's Day, because I think women in particular are some of the most disrespected species here. I mean, when we look at what happens, and we're going to start migrating into the importance of voting, but when we look at just women, they have to compete with us. In many spaces, women are only making 73% on the dollar that men are making. We have women that are our breadwinners. that have to, in some instances, have to raise families on their own. They have to make decisions about their own bodies that are now being jeopardized. So I think when we look at mothers, I have the utmost respect for women because I look at every woman as a microcosm of my mom, and I would never do anything to obviously hurt my mom. If anything, I try to uplift and support in any way that I can. So I think for the mothers out there, I see a cousin is joined in, and his mother, Gloria Brown, was an instrumental extended part of our family because her sister was our grandmother. So it's all in love. And, I wanted to have this as a part of our show because I think that mothers don't get enough love or attention. And I'll put it to you this way, for those of you that are viewing, do something special if your mom is still here on the planet. It doesn't have to be anything grandiose. Saying I love you. I mean, I make sure I call my mother almost every day, only because I just want to make sure that she knows that I know that I love her. We sometimes forget that. So I think that the mother is the nucleus of all families. I've seen my mom step up and be, superwoman. When we went through historically, I'll say the feminist movement or the independent stage, and I don't want to go over my skis, I'm just providing a perspective. There was a lot of emphasis on women doing it all. It can be done. I'm not saying it's not, but I think that there's also a medium where that, we have to have the best of both worlds. My dad was a guy's man, a man's man, but he also knew that for that well-rounded individuality where we can be sensitive and understand the perspective of a woman, he let that job be done in arguably the best hands that, I was able to experience and I've seen. So hats off to the mothers out there.
Now, if I can just chime in real quick because I just want to just echo something that you were saying. Not only are women more disrespected and Black women are more disrespected, they're expected to be disrespected, which is why they do it all. Because there's nobody, there's no support, there's no help, there's no respect, there's no, I don't think doing it all is a choice. I think doing it all is a circumstance. You know what I'm saying? And, you can't wait for somebody else to do it for you. So, just think, the women in our community have not had the luxury of being stay-at-home moms. That's not a reality. We don't know that. When people say that stay-at-home, that wasn't a reality in my household. That wasn't a reality in any of my family's households. Everybody had to work. So when we think about the whole role of, mothers, and in the particular role of Black mothers, where they couldn't be stay-at-home moms, so they had to be moms at home and moms and they had to go and work. You know what I'm saying? So they still had the stay-at-home mom's job, but they also had to go to work and do that job. So there wasn't a lot of choice in that. So, the Black woman is a diamond, man. She's made under pressure. You know what I'm saying? It's a diamond.
Do any of you other guys, do you have other comments about moms? Because I think as we transition, I want to bridge why mothers and women are very important. Are there any other comments around that?
No, I just want to, when you mentioned about our family, as you mentioned, we do have a family member that's tuned in. Special shout out to him. But I think something Vince said is like an eye opener, because if you look at it, and that's a whole nother show, but the women in our family, Aunt Gloria, Aunt Gladys, Aunt Helen, Aunt Leah, our grandmother, those were her sisters. We called her Nana, Marie Edwards. They were different than the women now, and that's not a knock on any of them. It was just different. It was just a different motherhood, a different relationship. Our aunts now, they call them aunties now, but it was a different respect and a whole different relationship with the aunts that were older than us. I mean, the baking of the cakes, spending the night in the houses, I could sit here all day and tell you things, but it's a little different. To piggyback on what Vince said, it was a different relationship with the mothers outside of your family, your immediate aunts on both sides, even on our dad's side. But I just wanted to mention that because they're very important in our lives, and there was no problem with us going to their houses and staying there for holidays. We were a tight family. If you go back and you think about when I say about Mother's Day, all our aunts had some type of influence over our houses. Every week we were going to a different aunt's house. It's a different world now. It's a different society now. But that was so important. And even though most of them are not with us anymore, I really, really appreciate it. We were kids then, but I think about them every day because they all gave us something positive to learn about and to take with us for the rest of our lives. And people need to understand that.
Good point. And then, I just got flooded with memories of one particular aunt. She, you didn't have daycare then. Somebody looked after you with those working mothers, as Vince was saying. So, my Aunt Helen was a crossing guard. And that's when she saw me playing poker because I had another aunt that used to run card games. And one day she said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I figured I learned how to play poker just by observing. So those are just kind of the small things that we learn. But, I want to make a transition here because right now, as we look at May, we've got those Mother's Day wishes out to the ladies, and you deserve it. You make it happen. I want to make sure that for the viewers, we begin to talk about arguably the most important activity that we can do in a democracy, which is voting. And I want to tie that in because I think that, we had an election in 2020 that, depending on your ideology, was either fair and valid or it was rigged and crooked. I don't want to go into the side of right or wrong right now because most people that know me intimately know that I have a perspective on that. But my question is, and we've had it on a different show that had a lot of explosive moments and dialogue, but do you think that with the current state of affairs we're in right now, what is the importance of voting? Because one time we talked about the value of voting. I want to go around the horn. Do you guys think that in the situation or the state of affairs the world is in, is there any valid reason to vote? I'm going to go to Bay first and then change the order around. What say you, Bay?
Okay, Darren, me and you talk about this all the time, and you're my man. But as far as voting for like president or and at that level, I think it's useless. I think voting locally is a great idea, but as far as the president, when we get up into that level, I think there's a lot more to it. I think there's a lot more shenanigans going on. And I'm just like, nah, I'm not into it. I'm just not into it. I think we don't get anywhere. We've had the right to vote for over 50 years. Nothing's changed. Everything's been the same, in my opinion. They keep telling you that they're going to do something to you and do something for you. They don't do anything for you. When I vote, I want to get something for my vote. My vote is literally, in my mind, purchasing power. I am purchasing something, and if I'm not getting it back, I don't want to participate. If you know what I mean. So that's my perspective. I'm not into voting for a president or anything like that. I think they manipulate a lot, but locally, yeah, I'm into that. That's a great idea.
Okay, Rook, I want to go to you because I know, and Rook is kind of a ringer because in his show, Rook's Castle, he's really inundated at a granular level with local municipalities. So as we did pre-planning, I said, you know what, let's have maybe a spoon feed of that because I think as we discussed it, it's a microcosm for some of the larger issues that influence our voting decisions. So what's your perspective?
Wow. Well, again, I appreciate the.
Go on mute, please. Sorry.
I appreciate the gentleman, the distinguished gentleman, the intelligent gentleman that on this conversation. I appreciate the people that are watching. But let's tell it like it is right now. We have a problem in this country, Vince. I'm speaking to you directly because you're an educator. But first of all, if you look at starting with the president, the vice president, the congressman, the senators, let's start right there real quick, and then I'll get into it. First of all, Black people, African Americans, whatever, Latinos, we've lost our will after we had a Black president. After Barack Obama, we basically went back to uh, I think 50 years back. We were so proud and obsessed with the fact that we did. We loved that we had a Black president, but let's look at it for what it is. We live in an inner city, but what has changed for African Americans? What has changed in the world when you look at what's going on? Right now, I think the Democratic Party, I'm with Bay on this, Democratic Party, it has been useless to Black people. When you look at the Democrats and Republicans, you could start talking about the civil rights movement. But we are in trouble because if you look around in every major city in America, Black people living in the same conditions. And I say that because we don't vote, voter suppression. Our urban communities are terrible. We're dealing with the same people. We sit here and talk about racism. And if you really want to be honest, these political machines have brainwashed us in the African American community. And the reason I say that is, let's take for instance, and when we come back around to me, I'm going to really get into this. Look at Black Lives Matter. Everybody was all head over heels over Black Lives Matter. But if you look at that, what happened to that? We went out there and fought, painted streets, and did all these things, and all these people, young people that got killed. And as we talk about that, after the George Floyd murder or lynching, things got worse for us. It got worse. If you know what I'm, if you live in an African American community city, things got worse. Let's be honest about this. Look at Black Lives Matter, the people that were involved in that, and they're under investigation now for stealing millions of dollars. None of that money went back into the community. That money went to the people who had died all over the country. Their parents who put their lives on the line. People out there protesting, getting killed and shot, dealing with police brutality and things like that. But I'm saying, that Black Lives Matter, I don't know if you people, I know you guys know, but people that are following our conversation, what did that do for us? Ever since the thing that happened in Minnesota with George Floyd, our communities got worse. We dealing with white governors aligned with Black mayors in urban communities. If you in our community, we're talking about the senior voters. They use them food, trips, all kinds of gimmicks. The 18 to 35 generation is politically unconscious. They're not voting. I mean, we got a lot of problems here. Our Black churches that everybody hooped and hollered about for years are not involved in our community anymore. The richest place on Sundays is the Black church. Not to knock anybody's religion, but I'm just being honest and telling you guys that something's going to have to change. Everybody that's supposed to be a political expert on all these cable news channels has been talking about for years what we need to do, a third party, but we're going to have to do something. And to close that up until it comes back around to me, because I got a lot to say about this stuff. You take a place like Newark, New Jersey. Mafia political families have controlled our places. When you look at Patterson, Newark, Irvington, Orange, East Orange, the same people have been controlling our communities in our city. Adebato, James, Baraka, Tucker, Payne. I'm trying to understand what's wrong with our people where we term limits. I say that on TV every week. I know people are tired of hearing that. The only way you're gonna change some of the stuff that's going on, I'll give it to you guys in 1 second, in the Black community. There's nowhere in the world when you look at the crime, unemployment, failing school systems. Vince, I know you could relate to that. That's going on in African American communities. We vote for the same people. And real quick, and I'm gonna let you guys, I don't want to get greedy. We had a school board election here last week. 2% of the people out of 100 voted for the school board election. So that sums up everything I'm saying. We talk about what's wrong with our kids, what's wrong with our communities. And where we live at, real quick, our governor, Phil Murphy, has blocked the expansion of the most successful charter schools like North Star, Phillips Academy, and all those. And he's doing that because he's aligned here with this administration. I work for the city of North. I'm just being honest with you because they do not want these schools to expand. It's about money, Vince. It's about money because you're an educator. The money, all the kids now, you got 20, 30,000 people that basically are on a list to go to charter schools. But when the kids go to a charter school, that money goes with the charter school. So now you have a political mafia here in the city of Newark, and this is all over. That's why I told my brother I wasn't going to just zero in on Newark. But it's going on everywhere. It's going on in Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Newark, New York. Everywhere it's going on. Look at the shootings and crime that's going on in our schools. The kids are bringing guns to school, knives, is fighting. People don't want to be teachers anymore. They're scared. Ever since this pandemic went down, the attendance in the schools now, if you look at it, and to close the whole thing up is this. What is wrong with our parents? That's why I'm glad we started talking about the mothers when they don't even come to a PTA meeting, Vince. They do not come to nothing that involves their kids unless you're talking about going to a club or a party or where they got $2 drinks or somewhere with somebody shaking their behinds. We are a mess. We are a mess. And until black folks wake up and understand that something wrong, we vote for the same people. People where I live at complain about every little thing, and the same people have been in office since Sharp James was here. This administration is here now. The same people are going to stay in office for 20 and 40 years. I've been talking about this on TV for 30 years. The same people in office. Where are the young people at? Why haven't our young people, babe, some kind of way? That's why I can understand what you're saying about the voting. Where are the young people that are saying, we're not going to take this anymore. We want a voice at the table. And I want to hear what you guys saying about that because there's something wrong with us. We talking about voting. We just don't vote. We gave up. Why is anybody head over heels over Black Lives Matters? We have million women marches, million man marches. Nothing has changed in our communities. They are terrible, and we just take it.
Vince, what say you about this perspective?
Oh man, where do I begin? Rook, you put a lot on the table, Rook.
That's because I wanted to hear you, my brother. I wanted to hear
put a
what
lot
you
on
think.
the table. I gotta go back. First of all politics is local. That's not my quote. That's from Tip O'Neill. Tip O'Neill, and he's right. Even when you vote for president, you vote for your local situation. Let's understand that. First. Second, we don't support our young people. We bitch about everything they do.
Yeah.
Most of the change that we're going to see is going to come from the young people. If you look at who out there fighting in Ukraine, who's fighting in Palestine, who fighting all these, anywhere you look, it's the young people. It ain't nobody 60 years old going out there with no guns, throwing rocks at tanks. You're not doing that. So the voting, first of all, we got to get young people in the voting. But the problem is our voting situation is an effect. It's not a cause. People don't vote because of how they're treated. They're not treated that way because they don't vote. You know what I'm saying? If I'm voting every year and my street's not getting paved, my street sweeper's not cleaning nothing, the cops are still harassing us and beating people up and killing people, you're like, well, what the hell is the use of my vote? But we got to understand we have to educate ourselves in politics. We can't be sensational about it, and we got to know what gets us further. Now, I'm going to go on to this. There are several immigrant communities in the United States where no one votes. They're doing okay, and we're not. We vote at a higher rate than they do. No, this problem, I'm not going to say don't vote, but I'm going to say this. You have a right to vote. You are not compelled to vote, right? So it's not mandatory. If they made you vote, that would be just as bad as telling you you couldn't. So you have to know that, you have to know that that's what's going on. you have to know that that's what's going on. So we approach this the wrong way. We need to first look local and get the right. I don't care whether they're black. I don't care who they're. Get the right candidate in the local. Do you realize the Republican Party has taken over politics at a national level by focusing on the local level?
Correct.
They got governors and state houses. They got state legislatures. You know what I mean? They got Republican mayors in all these little towns. You know what I'm saying? They went, and so now they got control of the gerrymandering. Now they got control of who gets appointed as judges. Now they got control of all of that stuff because we weren't focused locally. Because 11% of the population show out for local elections. That's disgraceful, right? But I'm not saying you should vote, because voting, the right to vote, that's an option. So even though you compel people to vote, you can't make them vote for a certain candidate. And an abstention is actually a vote. You're actually voting for no one. So if you choose, it's one thing if you're not voting because you're lazy. If you make a choice not to vote, you're saying I'm voting for no one. And that's just as much as voting for one candidate or another. So what happens is when you're compelling these people to vote, you're telling them, not only should you vote, you should vote for the candidate I like. What if they don't like the candidate you like? I'm getting contacted now by people running for mayor of Patterson, even though I don't live there no more, because they think I got some influence there and I can make people vote for them. But for me, I look at your behavior. I look at how you acted as a citizen before you even decided to run. So now I know you're running for mayor, because of the income, because of the power, because, of the connections, but you're not really trying to. And so let's be honest with ourselves. These people running for office are self-interested first. I'm going to go as far as to say most people are self-interested first, not just the politicians. We get mad at them because they act in ways that we already are acting like. And I recommend a story for you guys to read that really talks about this and illuminates it. There's a story written by Mark Twain called What is Man? And it's a conversation between an old man and a young man about basically two things. A, you are a result of your temperament and your training. And B, most people are self-interested. The conversation goes back and forth between these two people on that. It's a long read, but I guarantee you it will illuminate some of the stuff that's worth it. So once you realize that most people are self-interested, you have to find out what is the self-interest of the constituency in your community that you need to target so that you can get people in office. What are people most interested in having? The school system, as you were talking about, Rook, the school system follows the community. So as much as you want to blame it on parents, as much as you want to blame it on teachers, if you live in a dirty, crime-ridden community, your school system, even the private schools in your community, are going to reflect that community, period. So if you want to improve the school systems, charter school or not, improve the community. To improve the community, you got to get candidates in office that are going to target those areas that you need improvement in. When Brent Schindler was mayor of Jersey City, and he was a Republican mayor, right? The first thing he did was clean up the streets. The absolute first thing he did was clean up the streets. There's a Republican mayor of a 75% Democratic town who was able to get reelected. First of all, he was able to get elected in the first place. So let's look locally. What do we need to do? What don't we like about our school system? If you got crime in your neighborhood, if you got kids, if you got kids scared to walk the street, that affects their learning. If you don't fix that, if you don't clean up the place and get rid of the crime, I don't care how interested parents are. And two things. I'm going back to this point. Our affluent, our bourgeoisie, if we keep leaving the community, we'll never fix the community. Those are the voters. Those are the people that parent back to school night. Those are all of those people. So now you're dependent on people who are either disinterested or got 3 jobs to show up on back to school night. That's not going to happen. I'm done. I'll pass that to somebody else to finish.
Good points.
Wow. Well, I think you unpacked a few things, and I wanted to just supplement some of the commentary with a few things. One of the viewers had mentioned and made a comment that young people are distracted. And I think you kind of put out different points of why that actually is happening. But I think one thing that I just wanted to make sure people understood was from the Brookings Institute in 2020, voter turnout participation surged among African American, Latino, and non-college white voters. We just we told the line. When I say that, we told the line, and then when you look at it, and I'm going to speak through this from the presidential lens, 83% of that voter turnout went to the Democrat, and 17% went to the Republican. Now, what's interesting is that there used to be, I'll say, a correlation between your economic status and who you were inclined to vote. That's changing now, because what was interesting in 2020 from a political standpoint, you had segments of people that chose to vote for Democratic candidates, not only because of, I'll call it, what they call table stakes issues. If you think about it, the GOP didn't even have a platform in 2020. Their platform was, my candidate should be in place. And that's where, I think, Vince, you made the comment, that strategy. And there is the other piece that I think we need to unpack as well. There are different strategies that are more effective than others. For the first time in recent political history, since we've been voting, we actually saw a governor get elected to a commonwealth for an ideology that doesn't even exist. And when I say that, I'm speaking specifically around CRT being taught at a secondary school level, when for all intents and purposes, they never even had to prove that it existed. But it was a good enough platform to get people to come out and vote.
D, can I say something about that? That's
Sure.
not the platform. Is everything black is bad. That's the platform. So if you associate anything with black folks, let me give you an example. I'm sitting at a union negotiation, and I'm chairing the union negotiation, right? And I'm working on behalf of faculty, college professors. And so the lawyer from the other side, he gets going. So I ripped the lawyer a new one in the room. I'm going at him. Now, this is a union negotiation, so they get rather fiery, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going at this guy. He's an attorney. He can handle himself. You realize the president of my union, white guy, right? He interrupted me to tell me I couldn't straighten this guy out. Now, mind you, I'm arguing for this guy's interest. And he's interrupting me because the value of what I was doing to him was outweighed by my response to a white male. We have to understand that we are America's boogeyman. As I said, you've read my comments on this. We are at the bottom rung of we're not even a rung on the ladder. We're the floor on which the ladder sits. We're not even a rung on the ladder. Everybody else, Toni Morrison said this, everybody else from every other country gets to come to America and say, I'm not them. You got to understand that. Now, if you go anywhere else in the world where there are no black folks, the white folks are ripping each other's throats out. Look at Ukraine. Look at Serbia. Look at Ireland in Northern Ireland. Look at all of that. They need us as a buffer so they won't go after each other. And in order for us to be that buffer, we have to be at the bottom.
Vince, everybody needs a boogeyman. And we are the one thing that everybody can agree on. We are the one thing. And we are the ones that made it possible for everybody to come to this country, immigrants to come to this country and have a good life. But then we're the first ones to say, like you said, Vince, well, I'm not them. I'm not them. I'm a step above them. But we made it where everybody can come here. You know what I'm saying?
I do. But we have to understand that. I think the rest of America understands that. I think it's black folks that need to understand who we are and what we are, what we do. I know my camera's bugging. We don't understand who we are. We keep thinking we're like them. And that's a mistake. So I'm not telling you not to vote. I'm telling you how to use it. We need to understand who we are in this process and the value of our votes and how we are applying them. We need to vote for mayors, council people, and people, and not our friends and cousins and people we like, or vote for the black guy over the white guy. If the white guy is doing more for you, you vote for that guy. You know what I mean? Don't vote for somebody, you know, in Patterson, we got a bunch of people riding around town looking at potholes, you know, pothole surfers. You know, they look at and they post the potholes, see what our mayor is or isn't. Look, I don't know what the guy is or isn't doing anyway. I supported him when he was running the first time, but I also understand how hard it is to be a mayor of a town that ain't got no money. You know what I'm saying? You know, I don't care who. So you think when I vote for you, this guy's doing a poor job. So you're going to turn that job he's doing around overnight? I have to believe that to vote for you. And if I don't believe that, so if the party and the connections this guy's got and the stuff with the state and the governor, they're all supporting this guy, and we oust him with somebody that the party and the governor doesn't support, how much you think I'm going to get from my town? It happened already in Patterson. We elected a mayor who wasn't supported by the system. They trashed that guy. And he was a black man. He was a black man, ex-Marine, had an MBA, all of that crap. Now, I'm not telling you he was a great mayor. I'm not going into that. All I know is he got short shrift when he was mayor of Patterson. You know what I mean? And we've had 2 mayors in Patterson that have gone to Club Fed that were very popular. They were extremely popular. So I don't go by the beauty contest. I go by who's going to bring some resources to my town. Who's going to help? Now, it may not happen immediately. It might have to happen. Look, gentrification might be the thing that Patterson needs at this point.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? Because you can't fund. Patterson has 8% of its population have college degrees. Now, why does that make a difference? It makes a difference in income. There is a 14% income difference between those that don't have a college degree and those that have an associate's degree. There's a 14% difference in income. So if you're gonna cater a town towards poor people, it's never going to work. As a matter of fact, you're driving your town into blightedness, which is going to cause the gentrification. There's a cycle. Gentrification is a cycle. It goes.
Vince, can I interrupt you for a second?
Go ahead.
Why is there gentrification? Why do we have such thing as gentrification? Why doesn't everybody get equal amounts of resources? You know what I'm saying, Vince? It's like, so why do we have this word gentrification? It's horrible to even say that. You know what I'm saying?
It's a result of capitalism.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
Speculators are always going to find it cheaper. They always going to find a place that's cheaper with more character to move in and make something for themselves. That's why we have but if the black bourgeoisie never left Harlem, never left Patterson, never left Newark, never left Trenton, never left Asbury Park, never left Atlantic City, the gentrifiers couldn't come. There'd be nothing to buy.
Right.
So what we do, we go to college, we open a business, we do this, we make all this money, and the first thing we do is leave.
Right. I agree 100%.
You got somebody people say money won't change me. That's a lie. Money changes you because the first thing you change is your address.
Right. Which is totally wrong. You know, because you should stay there and build that area, because when you leave, that's when we get the gentrification.
Right.
Rook, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say I agree with everything you guys are saying, but to piggyback on both conversations we just had is special shout out to Deborah, Tiff, and Steph, who are the great people that do our Sistahship show. I want to recognize them since we are talking, and I know they help get our viewers in. But let me say this, what I agree with you guys. When you talk about this, Vince and Bay and Darren, listen to this though. What you guys are saying is correct, because look, everybody wants to work here, but nobody wants to live here. The teachers don't live here anymore. The firemen don't live here anymore. The cops don't live here anymore. So let's look back when you say if your city is dirty and what's going on and everything's bad with the crime. Years ago, the police lived in Nook. The firemen lived in Nook. The teachers live here. They don't know, the teachers don't know the kids. They don't live here. The policemen, you don't see them, and the cleaners getting their uniform out. The cleaners, you don't see them. at the local store. You don't see them in the neighborhood. The firemen now, they do not live here. None of them live here. And it's what you're saying. They all moved out. It's the difference when you get that phone call about a fire or a shooting on South 20th Street, and you live around the corner. Your aunt or grandmother lives there, but everybody here wants to come here, do their 8 and skate. Everybody brags about how they don't live here in Newark anymore. And when you really look at it, Vince, you mentioned something about, and Darren, about the voting in Virginia. What's happening now across the country now, guys, is that these white parents are going to school board. I don't know how many people know this. School board meetings. They're cutting up. They're letting these candidates know that if you're not going to do what I tell you to do, and you're not going to have certain books that deal with Black history and things like that in the schools, they are the ones that, look what happened in Virginia. They are the ones that are telling these candidates now, how do you think the guy won in Virginia for the governor's race? These parents got him in who said, this is what you're going to teach our kids. CRT and all of this stuff.
But it wasn't about teaching our kids. It was just about associating the other candidate with Black folks.
Yeah.
It wasn't about teaching nothing, because ain't nothing being taught.
Exactly. And I think that was
y'all got to understand that we are the boogeyman. All you got to do is put somebody next to us, and it's a problem. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's deep. Just look at how Kaepernick was treated. Oh, yeah. There's no way in hell he should have got treated like that.
Yeah.
Look at how this new Supreme Court justice was treated. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if we don't wake up and take care of ourselves, we need to stop sticking our hands out saying "give me." We need to start saying "stop treating me bad." No, people gonna say I'm wrong. There are people all over the world who get fed up. Look at them Ukrainians. Yo, I love them people over there. They're like, kill me. We too comfortable, man. We too comfortable. We're not willing to sacrifice what needs to be. And I'm not saying go out there and shoot people. That's not what I'm saying. But we're not willing to financially make the sacrifice. We're not willing to sacrifice a little security. We're not even that you're sacrificing. When you move to Summit from Newark, you just changed the identity of the person who was going to oppress you. That's all. That's all you've done. I got a buddy who moved to Summit. He stopped every other day by the cops, and he lived there. Here's a guy who was paying taxes in that town, being stopped every other day because he drove a late model Benz, because he lived in Summit.
Perfect example.
Does he feel like it's worth it though? Still now, I'm just curious.
When I lived in Patterson for 20 years. I think it was worth every minute. I coached Little League football. I coached high school football. I was in the community. The kids knew who I was. You know what I'm saying? I could tell a kid in a minute, yo, man, you can't do that. And they would stop.
No. I mean, was the guy that was getting stopped in Summit, did he feel that it was worth it? In other words, he's paying the higher taxes. I actually have a very good friend that lives in Summit. And
I'll tell you every day, there's a lot of Black people feel like it's worth it. Because for the same reason that white people think it's worth it to stop you, Black people think it's worth it to stop you, because they have in their mind, if they'll do this to him, they'll do it to protect me.
Interesting.
You understand what I'm saying? When you saw that man, there are people in this country that think it was okay for Chauvin to be on George Floyd's neck like that. Because they're thinking, he'd do that, I know he'll protect me. I know he will protect me. If he'll do that to that guy, I know I'm good. You know what I'm saying? So it is a signal they're sending to each other that we down for this. So I'm sorry. Until we like, yo, officer, till the bystanders are like, yo, officer, you can't do that. And it's going to get to that. There's going to be some cats on the street that's going to see something like that, and they're just going to jump the officer. It's coming. Yeah. You don't have enough people like that yet. It's coming. It happens in every country. Why do we feel like we're different? There's going to be a bunch of young people that come around. This is why they do this shit to us. I'm sorry. They do this stuff to us so often so that they can keep us from getting to that.
Exactly.
Like somebody said, Steph said conditioning. It's true. They're conditioning us not to fight back.
Exactly.
Correct. by making it normal and by terrorizing. But I don't want to go too far off course, and I want to get back to voting. But before we do that, I want to share a story. When I first started out in Rochester, New York, I was hanging around. I moved to the place that was closest to work because at the time, that made sense for me. I wanted to be close to the job. Now, I eventually moved into the city, and when I bought my first house, you know how that went down? I started talking to other black professionals in Rochester that I knew. Everybody was buying in a particular area. And it was, now this was 25 years ago, I'm going to date myself, but what was happening was that young people that had careers were moving in the community. I bought in the city. And what you said, Vince, resonates because after the Million Man March, I got involved with coaching. That was something my dad did. That was something that Rook was doing. And I felt that that was something that I should do. And what was interesting was that when I started hanging around some of the engineers that were professionals living in, it's called the 19th Ward of Rochester. You know, when I started hanging out with some of the entrepreneurs, you know what started happening? Just, I'll say organically. In some of those conversations, they were like, you know what, we need to get a councilman in here that could make sure that we could get zoning for X, for Y, for Z. So that actual powernomics concept within the community we were a part of. But you know what happened? Kodak fell on hard times. Xerox actually kind of flatlined. People began to leave Rochester, not the neighborhoods per se. They left town because the infrastructure fell. And there's a saying that, you know, when white folks get a cold, we usually get the flu. And that's what actually happened. I stayed for about 10 years. I still own that home. But what's happened now is that because that infrastructure pulled out, the full circle of gentrification's coming out. Every week I get a call about how much do you want to sell. For me right now, that's a non sequitur because, you know, I'm still going to keep it. But I think that that's also happened. And before the show, we were talking, kind of chopping it up. We were talking about the correlation between one, years ago, a lot of families and friends of mine, including someone that's on the show, those families moved to Atlanta. Atlanta was hot in the 70s. Mayor Maynard Jackson had secured a lot of government contracts to rebuild Hartsfield or expand it, quite frankly. And people went down there like it was a gold rush. I knew people that made good money in the 70s and the 80s after deciding to leave Newark, which had struggled. Let's face it. Let's keep it real. And they made better lives for themselves. Then Charlotte became the big attraction because of the financial community.
All the banks.
All of the banks from the Bank of America. Wachovia was, you know, now, which I think was now maybe Wells Fargo. I can't remember the number of mergers. And then we said Raleigh. So a lot of that is not necessarily inclined to neighborhoods or communities. You know, there was a book called Megatrends by Tom Peters years ago. I'm sure you know about it, Vince, where they were talking about how this migration would reverse. You know, when we have to look at it through the historical lens, a lot of our family members came from the South. You know, my grandparents that were from Alabama on the paternal side wound up in Newark. The maternal grandparents from Virginia wound up in Newark. Those people that I met at Florida A&M whose grandparents were in Mississippi, they wound up in Chicago.
Sure did. Chicago and Detroit.
In Detroit, exactly. That was the last stop on the line. Those people from Louisiana and Texas wound up in LA, you know. But now, you know, interestingly enough, and since I'm in the storytelling mode, that's where LA's cops were imported from as well, because there was a chief called Daryl Gates during the riots in the 80s. He decided, after everything that was going on with the Black Panthers and people starting to say, hey, you know what, I really want to stand up for my community, there was a decision made at a political level where we need more aggressive policemen. And guess where they recruited them from? Mississippi, Louisiana, sundown towns. Look that up, because that's when that change, that step change in police interaction went from cordial to brutal because they imported.
Oh, I'm gonna go even farther than that. You have certain professions in our society that are decidedly given for nepotistic reasons. Police officers, police is one of them. Fire is one of them. Stagehands, they're one of them. You know, if you look at, there's certain professions that you only get in if they let you in.
Correct.
You know, the Elizabeth Police Department sued over their entrance exam. Yeah. They got sued because they said their police exam was biased. That's heavy. You know what I mean? And Elizabeth is not necessarily a troubled town, so to speak. You know, it's not Patterson, it's not Trenton, it's not, you know what I'm saying? So right. They got sued over that. So what happens is, and I've said this before, I'm probably gonna get in trouble. This is Kevin Brown. This is probably why I can't run the office, because I speak too freely. So they're never gonna let a guy who talks like me in anybody's office. First. Secondly, we're talking about Mother's Day. It's my mother who told me not to run for office. It was my mother's request. So I didn't do that. But I call the police department and the fire department to a large degree is the greatest jobs today. It wasn't always like this. It's the greatest jobs program in America for unskilled white labor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you get a license.
Because where do you get a job with the benefits of a police officer, right? With the pay of a police officer that gives you the ability to carry a gun, with the connections of the police officer that you can have with no degree, no experience. They figured that out. So they hold each other for jobs, and they're also using each other to keep us at bay. Mm-hmm. So they're making top dollar to oppress us. I'm sorry. I can't see it any other way. Because the good cops are not ratting out the bad ones, which make them bad cops.
But now, let me say this real quick. Where are we going with this? We're talking about voting, right? Yeah. Let me give you a prime example. A city like Newark, New Jersey, 350,000 people approximately, not counting the ones that came in here, snuck in, swam, whatever, however they got here, illegally or whatever. 145,000 people that are registered voters. Listen to this. In the last municipal election here in the city of Newark, we got one coming up in about 10 days. 27,000 people voted. And we're talking about, this show is about voting. That's it right there, Vince. 27, you hear what I said? Out of 350,000 people, 145,000 only registered 20. The mayor in this town won with 20,000 votes. The woman that ran against him got maybe, if you round up, maybe 6,000 votes. So what's that telling you when the people here not even thinking about voting? But it goes back to,
they don't feel good. They don't feel good about the process. People vote. Yeah, you know, they don't value the process. It's look, I'm not saying you're wrong. You're absolutely correct. The problem is that the problem is who we're putting in office. We're putting people in office and make our own people feel like voting is no use.
Nepotism.
So we have to be a little more educated about who we're putting in office.
But their base is what you said. Perfect point, Vince. Their base is the uneducated, the people that don't care, the people that have nothing to lose. They don't want change, because if they got change, then the town would have to change. When we talk about the conditions of the communities, here's where we're going with this real quick. In New Jersey, I think they stole the election with Murphy. Eventually, it's going to be a Republican governor here in New Jersey. I'm going to tell you why. Anytime a governor in New Jersey like Phil Murphy could win, he's only winning because he has control of the African American community. That's how he's winning. All the black mayors are following in the pocket of a white governor. A black man ran for sheriff here with more credentials than anybody in this area named John Arnold. Do you realize that every black politician, including the mayor and every freeholder, every council person, they were scared to even vote or take a picture with him.
So we need to vote them out.
They all need to go.
Right.
That's your problem. Look, how do
The problem is we putting people in office that the first thing they do is want to be beholden to the people who are in the power structure.
You're right.
We need to, and so then we let people openly attack this Congresswoman, Andrea Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
New
As
York.
soon as somebody steps out on the other side, they get attacked, and we don't support them.
Correct.
You know, the
Well,
tribe.
our problem-
We need to support the tribe. We need to support AOC. And so if we're not supporting AOC, who are you going to be in the local district? You're going to go with the crowd.
That's the
This
problem.
is why I can't run for office, because I was on the zoning board. Let me explain to you guys. I was on the zoning board, right? There's 7 members of the zoning board. You need a super majority to get a variance on the zoning board. So that means 3 votes can kill a request. And we were killing them because the request, basically, it was the developers getting hooked up and not the town. So we were killing them. Do you know the black city council president came after me?
Yeah.
He thought I was going to run for his office. I really think that's why he came after me, because that's the path to office. You go zoning board, school board, and then you run for council. I wasn't interested in running. I was only on the zoning board because the white, basically Soviet Muslim council member appointed me. The Republican white Muslim Soviet, he's from somewhere in the Soviet Republic. He appointed me to the zoning board. None of the black candidates would have done that. They don't want somebody that knows more than them. They don't want to be smart. They want to be powerful. So they want to rule over all these poor people because they're getting support from them. And they throw these poor people a bone like they did something. They clean up the park or some stupid stuff. You understand what I'm saying? And then they remain in power. They came for me. Now, this is the sad part of it all. They lost in court to me. I sued the city council. And how wrong did they have to be to lose to me? You know how the system always wins. How wrong did they have to be? Right? Then they appealed it, and they bought off a judge who kept me off the zoning board for that whole period. Right? So I appealed to the Supreme Court and won. But after that, I ain't want no parts of the politics. I was done.
I understand that, because real quick, here's the thing. It's no way in the world, and you 100% right. We got a situation here where, as I said, we got an election coming up here, right? I talk about this on TV every week. We have unopposed candidates. People are not even running for any of our at-large seats. You know why? Just what you said, Vince. The ward councilmen are in bed with the system. District leaders, one of them lives on my block. We don't even see her. My mother had a meeting on the block for the block association. She didn't even come. So that is why people are so suppressed, because you got people that live on our block and in our community. How could you be a district leader, a ward councilman, or anybody in here of influence when the whole city is controlled and it's a whole pot of nepotism and cronyism? Everybody's whole family's on the payroll.
Yep.
You can't even get a job. You educated here.
That's New Jersey from top to bottom.
That's why the kids
doesn't matter the ethnic makeup, doesn't matter any of that. That's New Jersey from top to bottom.
They tell the kids to go to school and come back. They can't get a job, they come back. All the jobs are controlled by ex-cons and drug dealers. That's the reality of it, and it's a shame, because what are you gonna do? People just gave up here, and they don't even vote. I just told you, 27,000 people voted out of 350,000, 145 registered, didn't even vote. Last week, 2% out of 100 voted in a school board election. I worked on one of the sites where they were polling. It was 10 people that came in to vote from 6 in the morning to 8 at night. And these are their kids.
But not only that,
I got a question. I got a quick question. You know, we are talking about their system, though. It's their system. They've had time to cultivate this system. How do you change a system like that? You know, I think because we're beating our heads, you know, like, oh, we got to vote, we got to do this, but it's their system because they can always manipulate it. They can. I've been in.
True. But let me.
I've been in union votes. I'm a union man. I've been in the union since 1982. I've been in union votes, and I know the majority of the guys voted nay, they would take that in the back room and they would say, yay, we're going with it. How do we, because they cultivate, they know they're going to do what they're going to do no matter what. So my question to you, with a system that they cultivated and they got walls up to stop us from doing all of these different things, how do we change that? That's my question.
All right, let me give you an example of how that's been changed already. If you look at Ramapo, New York, or you look at what's the place next to Asbury Park, Lakewood, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Those Orthodox Jewish people moved in and took over.
Oh, yes.
If you want a model as to how to do it,
yeah,
they gave it to you.
You're right, man. You're right. I remember that. And they did it in Rockland, New York, too. Rockland.
Yeah, that's Ramapo. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's
up in
right,
Ramapo.
right. That's right next to Pomona.
If you go to Ramapo, you can't even drive down the street on a Saturday.
Right, exactly.
Because everybody's going to Shabbat. And
everybody's walking.
Right, for Shabbat, the Orthodox.
Yeah.
But and I lived in Pomona, and what basically, and again, it's a book out of Powernomics. They basically, because of religious exclusion as uses an advantage, to be perfectly fair, they started creating schools. And then as they got schools, they began to build. Because I remember, like I said, I had a townhouse in that area, and at the time there was a measles outbreak. Measles, this was before even COVID. I'll just share a quick story. Hey, I remember going to court when they said, look, we don't have to take a vaccine. That went to court because they said, we're not doing it. And, right, wrong, and different people were impacted. But I want to kind of just change because we've got a little more than 15 minutes. I think we've diagnosed the problem of voting and its implications in a nutshell. There's economic frailty, there's disenfranchisement, and there's apathy. So I want to switch into solution mode like we try to do in every show. And I think, Vince, you were on the tip of the iceberg. Let's talk solutions. As we go into the midterms, right now, we know that it's not just, I'll say, civil rights that are on the docket. It's actually democracy. So for all of us, what is the solution and how we can optimize turnout? Or do we just let it fall and be relegated to the ballot of the bullet? Or we just wait for things to get bad for the dominant cast to determine that it's time to fix the system? I'll open that up.
Darren, I agree with your last statement when you just let the system fall and everybody gets affected. Because I think what Vince was alluding to, or what Vince was talking about, sometimes you got to just circle your wagons and do your own thing, like the Orthodox Jews did in Rockland. Because in my opinion, I don't see this system ever changing, because we've been beating at this door for so many years and nothing's happened. And they use us as the boogeymen to bring people out to vote. So that's my thoughts on it.
Vince, what do you say? No.
Well, the whole issue here is you're talking about using us I get all that's correct, and they're going to keep doing that. But we have to understand who we are, and I think we keep thinking that we're going to get treated like the general population, and we are not. Yeah. So until we decide that this is what we want for ourselves, and look, the very first people we have to go after when we decide we want to do this are people in the Black community that are making it bad for us. We need to get rid of them. And I don't mean get rid of them, but we need to either change their hearts and minds or make them unimportant, right? Look, I ain't tell the drug dealer he couldn't sell drugs in my neighborhood. I just told him he couldn't do it in front of my house. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? I can't control where he does it, but I can tell him you can't do it here. We're not even doing that. Look, we're going to have criminals. They got criminals in the white community. They got criminals in the Black community. They're punished differently. But if we had cops in the Black community, if we had judges in the system, if we had a mayor in the system, maybe we wouldn't be punished differently locally, right? So first thing we got to do is we got to take control of our environment. We got to limit the power that criminals have in our community. You know, they created a culture that we support that doesn't support us. Look,
Mm,
you go to Bensonhurst, you couldn't do nothing in front of Gotti's house.
that's
You
right.
couldn't even have a drug dealer on his block. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he was a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
When we gonna get like that? I remember George Nixon. You know George Nixon, D.
Yeah.
Used to work at Prudential.
Yeah.
He used to go down and tell these young brothers, yo, this is what you got to do with your money, man. You can't have that dirty money your whole life. This is what you got to do with your money. They wouldn't even listen to that guy. So I'm not focused on them because they don't care about us. They are parasites. They are using us. They give us nothing. They're only takers. They're free riders, as they say in economics. They're free riders. They give nothing. At least Gotti throwing festivals and
Fireworks every
and,
year.
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're not getting that from our own people. Because, and I don't care who taught us to hate ourselves, we need to learn how to love ourselves. That's first and foremost. We cannot vote if we don't love ourselves.
Okay.
Period. We got to start there. We got to teach every little kid the value of who we are in this society and the power we have. And like I told you, we do some, our votes are important. Put our mayors in charge, put our school boards in charge, put our zoning boards in charge, and then go after the state assembly, go after the Senate, make sure that we got candidates that represent our interests. If you're going to talk about voting. But I'm going to tell you this, I can understand why people are apathetic. I totally can understand.
Rook, what's the solution from your perspective?
Well, it's ironic that throughout this whole time, this excellent show that we've done with these brilliant minds on here, the fact that real quick, nobody has mentioned the fact that even after more than a year almost, Donald Trump still has close to 70, 80 million people still saying they stole election for him. So black people better wake up in the African-American community. For those people that don't follow the news like we do, obviously Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, just purchased Twitter. So now eventually you're going to have Donald Trump back on it. But I brought all that up to say that we have this not the show for that about social media. Honestly, our people, adults and kids, are too busy talking about nothing on social media. We spend most of our time in the African American community arguing over nonsense with people we don't know, threatening people. We talking about BS all day, 24/7 days a week. We lost track of what's really going on in the world because everybody is glued to a phone. That you got kids now 5 and 6 years old walking around with a telephone. So my point is that we have to wake up. I agree with everything everybody said on here. I'm just saying we're gonna have to. Everybody's like, we're gonna have to find a solution because right now, when you mentioned the name keeps coming up about the black governors are not. I'm sorry, the black mayors are not the solution. They're controlled by white governors. Even here, when you look at Essex County, Vince, you familiar with that? Our city is controlled by. We haven't talked about that. These county executives like Joe DiVincenzo, they control African American cities. They tell us what to do. We had a problem with the water here. A white executive from Essex County gave us almost $100 million. And you're going to tell me he's not controlling these black mayors? All of these cities, East Orange, Newark, Irvington, Orange, all over. Chicago, Miami, Detroit, New York, Harlem, everywhere. We talking about gentrification. Everything we talk about is affected by the fact that we do not have the black leadership. And real quick, nothing personal about any of them. Who are our black leaders? We still running around with the Al Sharptons of the world and things like that. Nothing personal, but unless they get money, they got their hands out. They're not helping us in the black community. You look at all the people, even from the Cory Bookers and everything, everybody's looking to enrich themselves. Everybody's a political entrepreneur now. That's what's wrong. Nobody's doing nothing in the black community. Our kids are failing. Our adults are failing. The black community is a mess. Look at the border. People coming over here every day and getting everything they need, but we killing each other. Just like Vince said, we allow the drug dealer to stand in front of the same spot. Ronald Rice is right around here. They selling drugs right in front of his office. Where I'm in our ward, in the South where we used to live, all the political bigwigs over there, that's the worst. That's the worst ward in North. They've lived there and they still haven't changed that. They've taken over this city, this culture of crime and corruption, and I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna say what I want. I'm gonna wear what I want. That has ruined African American cities. Where the police? They don't live here. They riding around in cars, wasting gas, not doing nothing. The teachers are leaving, they're retiring. Shabazz High School is one of the worst high schools in America. The kids are fighting in front. Nobody wants to be a teacher or a cop anymore. The ones who got them jobs now is either their wife or their girlfriend. We a mess. We're gonna have to find a way to either raise or some kind of way these young people gonna have to wake up and turn around. The older people, like our mom and our dad and all the real political figures in Newark that were out here, the Ken Gibsons and all that, they're gone. They paid their dues now. It's up to the next generation to figure out how they're gonna take it. You got people 18 to 35 that never voted before. And we're talking about voting because they're not even, I mean, you work in a high school, how are you not trying to register kids to get them to vote? Because they're doing something else. These kids not, Vince said something about educate. These kids not thinking about going to college now. They doing something else. Before you was either going to college, you was going to service, you was going to get a trade or something.
Yep.
All that's out the window now. We're living in the wild, wild west of African American communities. They're running wild. Older folks are scared. They go out early and come in early. People are afraid. We living in a prison complex now in the African American community. That's what it is.
Well, I'm gonna take the opportunity to just intervene and say, again, I'm a history buff, and I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or different. I just want to provide a perspective. One of our scholars, W.E.B. Du Bois, kind of for a different reason, he had this concept of that talented tenth. And at that time, over 80 or 90 years ago, the logic was that because of the conditions existing around would create this elite. Now, I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but that's how, in our experience here in America, it's shaken out. I contend that a lot of us will always be successful because we either figure it out or we make that assimilation to get set out. My point, reasons for that, present that. A lot of species, Princess Ness, I want to show venture capitalists who actually can be a minimize or discount that small amount of people in our communities going to be the next leaders. I think as we talk through this apathy, some of it is through a pathology of our own being, but I'll leave this and we'll go around the room. At some point, if we don't look at the next stage of the American experiment, which in my opinion is failing, we can't let the inflection point be to the point where authoritarian rule allows just, I'll say, no guardrails, or else we'll truly go back to a point in time that did not work for us. And when I say that, I'm talking about the time before Reconstruction. And that's not hyperbole, because right now we're seeing, for example, people that actually were traitors, were insurrectionists, get less time than an actor that lied about, his experience in the night in Chicago. So I want us to just look things through that perspective. We got to really figure out whatever we do. We got to move in collective positivity. And in some, if you don't want to vote, you shouldn't. But at some point, we've got to look at the implications of what voting's doing from the oppressor side, and it's not good. I want to go around the horn. You got 2 minutes for last thoughts, questions, and concerns. I'll start with you, Vince.
Okay. You always start with me, so I'm ready this time. All right. First.
Vince, let me know, Vince. You can have my 2 minutes too, Vince. You can close out the show, man.
Okay. Bay mentioned leaders. I'm going to get back to a point I made earlier, Bay. Who's the leaders in the Korean community? Who's the leaders in the Chinese community? Do we know who they are? Does it matter? You understand what I'm saying? Why we keep looking for leaders? We just need to do the right thing. Now, I read a book. There's another book. I'm going to give you guys a couple things to read. You know, I'm a professor, so I got to give you some reading material. There's a book called The Starfish and the Spider.
I got it.
It's about leaderless organization and how it works. Do you know two of the most successful leaderless organizations right now are Al-Qaeda and the Ku Klux Klan? Because they understand the goal.
Right. They have the idea.
Care who the leader is. The goal is what the goal is. And whatever the goal is, they have separate individual cells of organization that are networked. And each one has a different marching order. They have different directions, but they're all working towards the same goal. We don't need leaders. We need defined goals. That's the first thing we need, that everybody needs to work towards. That's one. Starfish is fine. Another book, W.E.B. Du Bois, The Philadelphia Study of the Negro. The reason that he talks the way he talks is a lot of it is based on the Philadelphia Study of the Negro. Now, I will say he did do the study under the white gaze. I will say that. But it explains a lot of his reasonings for why he thinks the way he thinks about black folks and what we need and the talented 10th and all of that. Because he felt like in Philadelphia, there was nobody to lead them. And they were just left to their own devices. I'm saying there were no goals.
Okay. Fair.
Our goals are wrong. We're listening to what they're telling. We're listening to what works if we were white people.
So what's different today?
But
what's different today? We have no goals, and I think we agree with that.
Okay, all right. I'm
Yeah,
done.
and like Vince is alluding to, we need like there's goals, there's codes that you got to live by. There's got to be minimum standards in our community, you know, and we got to be able to get to a certain point. We, like Vince just said, we can all be going different directions, but we want to end up at the right point, at the same.
Oh no, and I agree. And you know what? Just to be fair, my point why I challenged that was that to get to Black Wall Street, people knew what the goal was. It was real simple, to be honest with you. I mean, let's not make it more complex. It was that in order for you to survive, you have to self-segregate and create an economy of which and by which circulated amongst your own, because those avenues were curtailed. Period.
But let me add to that. You don't necessarily have to self-segregate, but you have to concentrate your resources amongst yourselves.
Correct.
It's not telling you not to bring other people in, because if we do this correctly, other people will come to us.
This is true. Well, they do, but just more from a colonization.
No, but we need an infrastructure. We can't say this is Black owned and then go to, you know, Newark Symphony Hall that's owned by Miles, whatever his name is, and
Miles
then perform there. Right. So we're giving him all the money. We need to make the sacrifice and do the Chitlin circuit. We need to do the small venues. We need to do what we have so we can build from there. We need to get our underworld involved in the functionality as well, just like it is in every other community.
But see, in that model, and I think we're saying the same thing. That's how we rose to prominence. But we're not willing to make those sacrifices. Everybody wants to get paid. Okay, so he's like, I'm not going to sacrifice this big paycheck I'm about to make to help my people. And that's who we are.
But hence we go back to the white man's ice is colder. Basically.
Yes.
Welcome, Lady K. We're about to close it out, but you can listen to our replay. Bay, I want to give you 2 minutes, and then I'm going to switch over to.
No, I passed mine. I told Vince can have mine. We're going to give the guest mine. Vince is on a roll. I'm on a roll. You let him go. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
I didn't know I was on a roll. I'm just talking to me and DJ had these talks every day.
That's right. So, Rook, let me give it to you. Close out your thoughts around the topic.
Okay. All right. Thank you for everybody that's been listening. Thank you to the panel. You guys were great. I'm going to leave you guys with this. For those of you who don't know, years ago, the old school Muslims were very influential in our community. When you said something about you couldn't sell drugs in front of Gotti's home, you couldn't do certain things in certain communities. Back then, the old school Muslims, they called it 25, Mosque 25 on
South
South Orange
Orange
Avenue
Avenue.
North. They controlled this city. It wasn't the police, it wasn't the politicians, it wasn't the preachers. They controlled this city, and that you could not do certain things. I'm gonna leave you guys with this. In our urban black communities across United States of America are now being controlled by gangs, guns, drugs, violence, and political corruption. That's the problem here in our world now where we live in. So we could sit here and talk all night, but until you deal with these problems, you never, nothing's never gonna change here. When you look at the whole thing, I could get you guys, come pick you guys up right now. We could ride through every ward in the city of North and then ride back there every day this week. The same people are standing on the same corners doing the same things every day, and nobody bothers them. The police don't bother them. The politicians don't bother them. Law enforcement does not bother them. So I'm saying we allow them to treat us like this. And that's the problem here in the inner city, and why people don't vote. Because real quick, what you said, Vince, they see how we're being treated and how we're being allowed to be treated. So they just give up. They don't care because most people just say, what's going to change? I'm not even going to waste my time voting. So I want to thank you guys for the wonderful show that we did, and hopefully we'll get together again. But we have a problem in the African American community. Even the Black and Latino coalitions no longer exist. Like you said, everybody for themselves now trying to get. Years ago they did have that, but right now, as long as you give the Latino community their part in the North Ward and parts of the East Ward, they're okay with it. The South Central and the West Wards are all it's all okay corral. Where these kids getting these guns from? And at the end of the day, until people stand up, nobody's wants to speak about it. I'm like you, Vince. I mean, I talk about this. I got 2 shows on TV. People are mad at me for telling the truth.
It's the truth.
I mean, if it wasn't for civil service, I probably wouldn't be working anymore. But the bottom line is that I'm serious, my brother. Somebody's got to do this. You guys are very intelligent. I love being on the show with you, but something's wrong when we all talking about the same thing. We're gonna have the same problems, and our people wake up. It's gonna have to be a total house cleaning of all these local politicians that use the African American community for everything, and the only people that profiting are them and their families. Thank you, gentlemen. We did a wonderful show.
Wow. Well, I don't even think that I would do the show a service by adding more, because I think I want to extend an appreciation for everybody. Vince coming back to back, Rook coming back after one of our initial shows, and Bay for being Mr. Consistency, because as I mentioned earlier, this is the 1-year anniversary of our show. I'm kind of a data junkie. I will share with the audience that, for the past year, we got over 100,000 hits just based on the dialogue. So that was something from a personal level that I felt that we needed to continue to do, and provide good guests like Vince and Rook to supplement the dialogue and the topics that we were bringing. So I really appreciate this, and more people will see this because we do a replay on Genesis Radio. I want to give a shout and a thank you to the owners, DJ Rudd and Terry Polite Pickering, for bringing us on. And I also have to extend the thanks to Mama C, Tiffany Kofer, and Stefania as part of the Sistahship, because we're an extension for them. So, at the end of the day, I think that we need to empower ourselves as a people. And this isn't necessarily an ethnic issue. It's a human issue. And I think as we break those barriers and make sure that we are walking in a positive space. See, because what I'm starting to find in my life experience, it's not about politics. It's about doing what's right. Because if we do what's right, we'll know that, trying to propagate a big lie is morally not actually the right thing to do. And I'll leave it there. And again, thank you, audience. Keep supporting us. And thank you guys for having a great show.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Man, this is great, man. I'll come back. Just let me know.
All right. Thank you, guys.
That's how our communities blow.
Yo, sub, you gotta.
Frankie Knuckles.
All right. Good show.
Yes, sir.
Yo, gentlemen, great show.
That's how our communities blow.
Yo, sup, you got a sec, I need to build for a minute.
What's up?
Matter of fact, you can chill for a minute. I
Okay.
need a platform where we could talk about some other shit. Get jewels for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership.
Get it right, this real life, we tired of struggling. Airtight on this shot, no more dysfunctioning. We reeling in the sunken and we bringing in our brother in the battles that you're facing. Be a cannon with our confidence.
No disrespect to my sisters at all, but it's the barbershop talk. Talk to kid at the ball. I'm talking waves and just a little